Hey everyone, this is B with 2B Fruitful Training Group. We're starting out this live. I'm just gonna wait for everybody to join in. Yo, what's going on? We're just waiting for people to get on right now. Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Apologize for starting late. I had some things to take care of real quick. What's going on? Alright, just gonna wait for more people to come in the chat. If you got any questions right now, feel free to ask. I'll do what I can to answer any questions to the best of my abilities. Anybody got any questions? If y'all haven't checked it out, go check out the SESKV videos. It explains a lot as far as how the SESKV Acts formed and some of the other case law that makes them applicable here in America. Everybody been busy today? Yeah, I get it. I've been running around all over the place doing just about everything. I get it. When it comes to that, did you do a name change and a name correction? I did a name change from all caps to upper and lower. Now, a lot of these courts, the reason why a lot of these people that talk about exclusive equity, they say it's a name correction, because it's really not a name change, although it is, when you can prove it, because the two names, capital letter name and the proper case name, they are entirely different. You just have to be able to articulate that and prove it to the court. But yeah, I did do that. That is something that is, there's really only like two suits that you have to file to really get everything done. But that is the first and half, the first half of that. So it is an essential part. It doesn't matter if the certificate of live birth is in all upper and lower, all caps. It doesn't matter. You need that to prove that you're living. There's no record of it, so you do need to do that. Yeah. I submitted the petition. I'm waiting to hear back. I don't know there was a second suit though. I don't think. Well, what I'm talking about is a presumption of death suit. That's something that's specific to state law, because I've gone, there's that maxim, by the method that, a thing is constituted is the same way it's dissolved. So, basically like something, the way that something derives its existence from is the same way that it can be dissolved, like, the reversal of entropy. So that's what it really is. Like, it's in the birth county. It'll depend on what state you're dealing with, like which court it's in. Some states it's civil court, some states it's probate. It just depends on how it's handled per state law. Yeah. So it's like you got to do the name change. You really want to submit certain things with it and allege certain things, like the GPO style manual, religious terms, and things like that, and maybe even the SSKV if you can, you're solid enough to do that. And then, once you get that order or that decree, depending on whether it's at law or in equity, it just depends on how they do the court procedure for the name change. But once you do that, then you got to go and you got to do a couple things. You got to set up the private trusts. You got to do the estate paperwork and get the EIN for the estate. You got to do what else? You got to do this SKV papers, because if you're going to go for the presumption of death suit, you got to put all that on the record too. So it's not so many that you can't do it. Like, I do things a little bit differently. Like, I do things as much as I can strictly to exclusive equity. But yeah, it's not hard. It's not so many processes. That's just mountains and mountains of paperwork. But there's a couple that you got to hit on key topics to be able to go into court like that. So yeah, that's what I'm referring to. And there's still more stuff that, like, I can't talk about in the public that's kind of a part of that. But like the presumption of death suit, you have to seal the court record and things like that. But absolutely, that's why I do this. Yeah, I remember. Believe me, I understand like how to change the name, because I had to do it 4 times to get it right. I messed up the first time. It took me 2 more times to get it corrected back to what it originally was, and then I came back like a year or 2 later and I did it from all the way correct, from all caps to upper and lower. And I was finally done with the name changes and all that. Yes. I will get to that in the Patreon. That's the stage that I'm still working on. I know how it's done because I've studied state law in the regards to the matter, but it ties directly into the SSKV Acts. It's the codified version of the SSKV. So equity follows the law. So you still have to look for statutory relief statutory remedy while you're seeking equitable relief. And then the other part of it is you're not just getting statutory remedy. Your equity delights to do justice and not by halves. So you get the at-law remedy and the relief and equity. So you just have to be able to know how to properly invoke equity and know what statutes to cover. But that is something that I go more into in the Patreon, and I'll probably have more on it going over this week. Tomorrow I'm going over kind of like some of the EIN and like entity classification type stuff tomorrow for those that are members of the group in the private classes on Fridays. But yeah, there's just some things I can't talk about in the public as much as I want to. I'd love to be able to do certain things, but they do know how to make people disappear when you say too much. Yeah. So Tiffany, well, what have you studied so far, if you don't mind me asking? Have you stayed mainly civil law, in court side? Have you done credit cleanup or any equity, trust law? Just kind of curious. Yo, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the live. If y'all got any questions, put them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them based on what I can and can't cover in the public. And the other thing too is I can't talk about this because it's already in the public anyway. With presumption of death suits, the birth certificate being a founding report, because okay, I see you, that's what's up. So the birth certificate being a founding report, birth meaning abandon in Anderson's Law Dictionary, and then the 1 USC 8, the Born Alive Infant Protections Act, basically stating that there's no difference between C-section, natural birth, and induced abortion. It basically makes that thing a death certificate, and that's something I can confirm, especially from my own experience. So, that being said, people identifying with that thing, trying to say that document is their identity, because Latin in identity comes from identitatem, meaning the exact same. And there's no way on earth, if the passport is saying surname, comma, given, and that birth certificate is saying first, middle, last, those are mirror images, but they are not the same. One has reverted in form. So I found out from some private sources that, and it's something I already kind of knew based on what I've seen with the witness protection program, but the courts have the power to issue new identity documents. The birth certificate never, ever should have been used as an identity document for any reason. All it identifies is a decedent's estate. So when people are using that thing to identify themselves, they're basically stating they're deceased. And that's why they can never see you, because you never appear. So everybody's so attached to that dang founding report, thinking that's the only way, the only document that'll ever possibly identify you. It's not. The court has the power to issue those types of documents. So, anybody got any questions? Anything? Okay. My wife and I get the trust set up. How do we deal with our property that is being rented to our tenants at the moment? You're talking on a subject where I'm covering like the tenant, more the tenant side. So be aware, there's not a lot of favor in equity in regards to the landlord because of the Cesta KV Acts. So mind you, if you're gonna do anything, I would LLC and its own separate thing, set up its own separate trust. But really, you got to be cognizant that the fact that when you're renting any type of property, all of the monies that you're getting are supposed to be reinvested for the benefit of the tenant. You're not supposed to be taking those profits. They aren't profits. Those are the principles that are supposed to be invested then, and after those investments come through, the interest is supposed to be then used partly, one, for compensation for your duties as trustee, and the other part of that interest is supposed to be given to the tenant. That's kind of like that's one of those situations, like, I know some things, but I can't really equitably say them because, like, my duty is, leasing is fraudulent. It really is. I did a whole video on it too. So, the other thing too is with landlords, you're supposed to be disclosing to the tenant where you keep the monies, in what account. So you're not even supposed to be commingling those monies. That's why it is an investment. Those monies are supposed to be invested. Then the interest off those monies, part of it, would be then your compensation for, as trustee, to care for the property. But yeah, at a certain point, that interest is supposed to be paying for not only their rent but your compensation. So you got to be real careful if you're renting out any type of property. It's not an equitable position at all. So you're seen as the legal owner, so you have more duties. Most people don't understand those types of things. That's why there's so many tax breaks for landlords and renters, rental properties, things like that. When it comes to taxes and things like that, it's because it's an inequitable position and you're putting people in a bind, whether you know it or not. But that's just something you got to be aware of. And I get the culture and and all that, but like I said, I can't endorse the culture because it's not right. I can't really tell you what to do on that. Like, it's kind of a personal situation, especially like renting like that, because it's because of the way that renting itself is set up and the lack of understanding of trusts. Like, when especially with corporate landlords, like, they send you that bill is supposed to be discharged, but they already have enough accounts and treasury accounts and TTNL and stuff like that they're able to go in and deposit those things as bank deposits and basically securitize and move the funds to where they get the interest off of that, and that's how they cover certain rents and things like that. As far as like that type of thing, like, honestly, if your tenants found out about certain acts, like, you're liable, and that's really all I can say. So you have quite a bit of liability there. Just be aware. Anyone got any other questions? Feel free, especially while we don't have too many people in the chat. I'll be able to get to more of them. I'm glad y'all got good questions. how can I apply original issue discount on a promissory note signed mortgage paper, and is this true if I paid the mortgage off? It's kind of a little vague on your comment, but from what I can, how can I apply original issue discount on a promissory note signed mortgage? On the mortgage itself, like you have to realize the mortgage is on the note, the escrow is on the note, and then the house is tied as collateral to it for repayment. So you got to discharge the note and then like do something like a tender of payment type thing, like UCC 3-603, and there's some other documents that I've just found out about that I still have yet to do that and approve as far as process, but that's a kind of a private question, honestly. I can't really touch on the everything on that in the public. The situation is that the property we own is being used for housing, but we moved into a property that isn't on the farm and work for it. I'm like an old-time farmhand. So you rent the property yourself, or you're renting the property out to someone else? The OID would technically be a negotiable instrument. It's the original issue. Kind of, but the OID, it depends on if you're talking about the promissory note itself, or if you're talking about the actual 1099 OID. The 1099 OID just reports the promissory note, which is the original issue. And then it was sold as at a discount. That's what makes it an OID. So, yeah. Like, yeah, it would, like... Yeah, the promissory note is the OID, and it is the negotiable instrument, the original issue. But the thing is, you have to satisfy it with the proper applicable excise and, taxes and, the duties that apply to the document. I can't really go into too much more than that in the public. Yo, y'all are asking me good questions. I'm not gonna lie. You're just touching on things. You're touching on the very areas I can't go over. I'd love, because once you start messing with securities and OIDs and certain things, you really can't talk about all of it in the public. And I can't really go over an entire process like that. Yeah, if you join the private class, I do have a general Q&A after like the specific Q&A on the material presented, and then yeah, I do open it up to general Q&A. So yeah, if you join the Patreon, yeah, I'll be able to answer that type of thing. So yeah, it's kind of like a, I don't know, it's kind of a catch-22. You just have a lot of liability renting out to somebody else. You're just gonna have to be aware that, like I said, if somebody figures out this type of stuff, if they start watching these videos, you're gonna have a whole lot of liability. And then you're gonna have somebody that's not gonna pay rent because they don't have to pay rent. The rents and profits are due to the tenant, because when you rent out to the tenant, the name is what they're giving as collateral to be able to invest the funds in. So yeah, like I said, the funds, all the rent monies and all that stuff, all that's supposed to be reinvested for the benefit of the tenant. That's why all these things are supposed to be, free and prepaid pursuant to, HJR 192, Public Law 73-10. But most people don't, especially a lot of smaller businesses, they don't know how to operate. It's just the truth. So yeah, I know it's tough. Like, it really is, and there's such a culture that's promoting like all the renting and the leasing and all that. But when you look up scripture, and it says there's several verses in the Old Testament that talk about how leasing is bloody and deceitful and fraudulent. So, you know, it's not like I'm not making it up. Like, you know, it's biblical, you know. Because that's why back in the day, indentured servants, their room and board was covered. So that's what makes, because essentially, yeah. So I mean, you just, you know, that's kind of your decision. You just got to do what you can and figure that out. But honestly, that's why wage slavery is like what it really is. You know, it's considered convict leasing. So, you know, before, especially went back in the day, they used to rent out slaves to certain mills and mines for a term of a period of time, and because they were leased, they would work them to absolute misery and death, and that is continued to this day. That's exactly what wage, you know, working for wages and all that stuff is right now, because it's really supposed, like, you know, it's really supposed to be indentured servitude. An indentured servant would have a house, you know, a roof over their head, certain clothes. They'd have certain duties and liabilities as well, but at least they had certain things taken care of. But the problem is, there's no, you know, people don't have money, especially a lot of the employers, to do that. So yeah, but that's what it is. Wage slavery and renting and all that stuff is convict leasing, because they're leasing out the slaves to all these different people to work for these employers. That's really what's happening. So yeah, with that, I mean, just gotta, that's why I'm working on settling all this, because if you have the funds and you know, get rid of the presumption of death, you don't got to worry about that much. In that sense, you can start providing for other people, and you learn enough, you know, you're able to reinvest funds for the benefit of tenants and things like that. But you'd be taking on a lot of liability. You just have to know how to properly do it and keep the laws. Yeah. So anybody study like what is it, Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England? That's a real good one for understanding the different types of holds on the state, like leasehold, copyhold, freehold, even darkhold, which is essentially a leasehold, like in the Doctor Strange and WandaVision. What's going on? Glad you're tuning in. Putting out signing debts and clapping leasing. I can't touch on that. I know how to do it. I can't do it though, because as soon as it's touching on securities. And as soon as you touch on that, that's the one thing they don't like. I can touch on a lot of stuff. Trust, equity, enforcement, things like that in the public, but that's not one of them that I can cover right now. Yeah, there's no gold and no money. Everything is trust. So you have to understand what is the real asset, how are tax liabilities and liabilities for debts handled, you know, who has the liability, like how to properly assign or discharge the liability or deliver the note and bearer form that constitutes a trust, things like that. Trust merger, you know, those are all things that you're going to need to be able to understand when you're properly discharging certain things. And you know, like I said, there's other processes that I've become privy to that I still have to test out, you know, like, you know, redemption for certain things with lawful money, like that 12 USC 411. Like, I still, like I said, I can't recommend it if I don't try it myself. So I gotta test those things out. But I mean, there's stuff in the works. So yeah, yep. Like I said, I would love to. I can touch on like the rules of forms and like the rules of signatures and things like that. Like, you know, when you sign, you're supposed to sign, you know, either by a grantor beneficiary or authorized representative. Trustee is probably the worst one to sign with, because you have to be so careful about it that it's ridiculous. So yeah, you have to stay in the private. That's the only way, because they just automatically, because there's so many things going on, especially with the ongoing bankruptcies, they just automatically assume that if it's in the public, it's subject to eminent domain, which may not be the case, but they really don't care, I'm telling you. So absolutely, that's what I studied. That's what I've been studying for 5 years. Yeah, that's what I stick to. That's how I've gotten most of my remedies, is through trust. Understanding the roles, the positions, the duties, how a trust is wound up, how a trust is performed, things like that. Having trust is one thing, but being able to, absolutely, you have to be able to administer it. Because if you don't know the roles, but being able to administer it is knowing the roles, duties, and responsibilities of the parties, how the parties form the relationship. Enforcement is, again, knowing not only the duties and liabilities, but knowing the rights thereof. So you have to know all the responsibilities in the trust to be able to administer it. That's why studying is so important, and especially with that, like some of the things, like I said, Blackstone's Commentaries on the Laws of England will teach you the old stuff. That's called the black letter codes, I think, black letter law, one of the two. There is, what else? There is Corpus Juris Secundum, Book 90 on trusts. There's honestly a few things. There's, what else? Gilbert's Law Summaries on the Law of Trusts. That's a good resource. That breaks it down to pretty much the simplest level, especially when you're starting out. There is, we are beneficiaries if we are users and have the ability to request certificates. Yes, the user, because you have to remember the use or the user is the one that's able to use the property, has the beneficial enjoyment, that gets to do certain things with the property. The trustee has a legal ownership. They don't have any of the rights of beneficial interest. So yeah, and it depends on what type of certificates you're talking about, because not all certificates are like that. But yeah, no, I mean, what other resources are there? The treatise, Treatise on the Law of Trusts by Lewin, and that was 1888. That's the white trust. The black trust is statutory. It's a creature of the law, the ens legis. That's the statutory black trust. So yeah, there's a couple different things there. Other than that, understanding the definitions: Black's Law, Bouvier's Law, Anderson's Law, Valentine's Law Dictionary. There's Thompson's Dictionary of Banking. There's a few others, but those give you a much better understanding of what you're dealing with, because you have to have a general understanding of like court and things like that. But then you have to dive further in and understand the different components of court. Yeah, okay, if you're talking about that, then yes. The birth certificate of law of birth is the beneficial title that everybody keeps looking for, and yeah, that's really what it is. Although, to be honest, it is the beneficial interest, but that trust has to be wound up, because that trust is blocking all the estate property, the estate res. That res was in that trust was originally from the estate, so that's where it came from. That's why the mother. So you have the Most High, the Creator, which endows and has endowed those inalienable rights that have been acknowledged by certain documents. They were already inherent, but they were acknowledged by men, like the Declaration of Independence. Now, what happens is that's your natural state of being, your natural state, your natural estate. So what happens is your mother, being a testatrix, no, not testatrix, executrix of your estate, as the mother of the child, she, essentially signs away as informant and creates the trust. Now she's the original settler, so she grants the child to the state. Now with the delivery of the note, the state becomes the legal owner, but it was intended for the child because it's the child's name. So the child is the beneficial owner of the property, the cestque use. So the trust was just for the purposes of just for identification, because of that's how they created this system, but it's being used against people because those aren't identity documents, those are evidences of enslavement. So when you have that type of thing, it has to be wound up into the estate, and the estate is just another trust, but it's under a different law form. It's under estate law instead of trust law, which really are the same thing. So just two different types of trusts. So you have to know and understand the differences between the two, and how a trust is wound up, because the mother, when after 18, all of the powers that the mother had over your name now get conveyed to you, and you have those rights to be able to do certain things. But now it's you versus the state. They're the legal owner of the name, you are the beneficial owner of the name. You have the right to use the property, but that name in all capital letters is always going to be deceased. So if they're stating that your name is deceased, then there's already an issue, that being a broken mirror. Exactly. Well, the hospital is selling it to the private registrar, and the registrar is considered the probator, the one that's taking the estate and probating it and converting it with unclean hands. That's the hidden hand that people keep looking for. So that's also the stork that everybody's heard of, the stork that carries off the babies. People don't realize that. I can talk about cestque V, I just can't talk about certain things, certain assets that apply to certain documents to assign the liability of the note. There's a reason why I'm using that terminology, and I can't let's exactly say what it is. Like I said, a lot of that stuff is considered trade secrets. There's two ways to defeat a trust in the public, according to these people: incompetency, which is why they discredit a lot of people, and death. I know what I'm talking about, so I'm doing my best right now. And as far as life insurance, that's a super, super, super risky move, because you're the surety for the insurance policy. So if you're making a claim on that, you would have to properly, and I don't even know if there's a way to go about it, because eventually they would just, honestly, you're better off just claiming the whole thing and ripping it out by its roots, instead of trying to go after like little insurance contracts like that. Unless it was like a whole life policy or something like that, or an IUL, or some other type of policy where you had like a significant interest where you were able to draw from it like during your life. Like if it was just a term life policy instead of a whole life policy, or an indexed universal life, like that's, you got to be real careful with that. If you have a whole life policy, there's a lot you can do with it. Although, like I said, I would make sure that they don't have to take your blood for it, because that's not a good idea. They do a lot of things with blood and DNA, and one of those things is quantum entanglement, which, if you look that up and you understand quantum mechanics, that's a very scary thing. So they do have whole life policies that do not require a doctor's visit or a medical exam. So just so you're aware. But that is one of those methods that people use to become their own bank, essentially. Depends on how you structure it, of course, but I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I don't trust in doctors. They're called doctors for a reason, because all they do is doctor you up. They don't heal you. But that's a personal decision on that. But there's plenty of things you can do. Even then, you can have the trust on it and certain other things. I heard of other things in the public where I won't get into those because I can't prove them. I haven't done those processes yet. But yeah, there's plenty of remedies out there. It's just how many can you try and how many have you proved, and what is the cost of being able to figure out, you know, whether you're right or wrong. So that's why I stuck to strictly equity, because admiralty and civil law, insurance and bonds, it's too harsh. You know, even British common law and American common law, it's very harsh. So I prefer equity, because equity cares about what's right. Equity regards as done what ought to have been done. So as long as you're going in there with clean hands and whatever matter you're going for, you know, you can still invoke equity. But it's when you start doing stuff you know you shouldn't, or things like that, that you get hemmed up and you can't access equity. Let me see. Yeah. And that's another thing a lot of people need to understand, is the difference between a general deposit versus a special deposit. A general deposit is a deposit where it's carte blanche. You know, you just sign. It's just a normal signature, no party, no name of the party, and anything like that. And the title passes to where the bank owns the deposit. Now, since the bank owns that deposit, they don't have to give you your original deposit back. All they have to give you is a bank credit, and it forms a lien on the general fund of the bank. So if they go bankrupt or all that, you're considered a general unsecured creditor. So in special deposits, you're creating a trust relationship, because the special deposit, meaning species or kind, it's an in-kind deposit. It has to be, the identical thing has to be returned back to the depositor. So the title is retained by the depositor, which means the grantor retains that interest. So it forms a trust. I don't know. I haven't tried that, John. It might be something. I don't know. Let me know if you know of anybody that's done that, or if you've done that yourself. Like, yeah. What's going on? Yeah, I would just say, just be careful, especially if you just heard it on from someone else, and you don't know if it's proven or not. There's a lot of things you think might work in the court, but until you're actually being grilled in there and facing them, because they really do not want to let anyone get through. So they're very subtle, and they're very good at what they do. People don't give them enough credit, like how difficult it is being in certain courts. especially when you're there and just dealing with magistrates. Because if you don't have to be there, don't. There's special appearance, there's common law abatement, there's things like that. Because your body being the estate gives them subject matter jurisdiction as soon as you walk in there. So when you walk in there, you're handing over jurisdiction to the right, right over there. So you have to walk on a tightrope with slick shoes going in there, and it's not easy. I mean, we all have an inheritance. It's just who's gonna claim it. If you don't have no type of identification or records like that, you got to do a baby land deed. A baby land deed is recorded with the county, and it's you created your own deed essentially. Now that has to be followed up with a proper warranty deed conveyed to a private express trust or a private irrevocable trust that's not domestic within the United States, and that has to be done properly. So that can be done. You just got to know how to do it. So baby land deed, warranty deed, and then the private trust selling, conveying the child to the trust. The SSN is record word for me on 3-party affidavit of mailing. The SSN is also an accounts. What is it? Accounts receivable is the receiving end. Yeah, I believe the front side is accounts receivable, and the back side is the accounts payable. The accounts receivable having to take in all the debts, and the accounts payable having all the assets to be able to pay out in any way. I can't exactly tell you what the back of it is, but yeah. Man, I dealt with this growing up in Texas and all that. They flat out refuse to do certain things, even if you properly recorded it and it's just a simple affidavit that is already allowed by statute. There's a lot of discrimination in a lot of states and counties. Honestly, there's other places, Georgia. I've heard of Lamar County, although I can't tell you what state that's in. I've heard of that before. If somebody else knows, maybe they can tell you. But there are states that will let you do certain things, but you're just gonna have to either find somebody in that state to do it for you, or potentially go somewhere else and do that. Because I'm telling you, I left different places because of that. And, Delaware? They should be able to let you do certain things in Delaware. I don't know. Is Delaware small enough to where it's only one county, or do they have multiple counties in Delaware? I might see if there's another county recorder. Now there are certain things that you can do to compel them if there are, certain codes and other things like that. There's 3 counties? Okay. Well, yeah. Like I said, there's some states that'll let you. And it's kind of a case-by-case basis because there's so much discrimination with the county levels. Like, depending on who's administering the county and things like that. Like, there's so much variance. Like certain places like Texas, they won't even allow you to file certain things if they know it's going to be of adverse interest to the state. So I would check in some of the other counties, but like you said, if you've had to do that, I think Georgia is one of them that'll still let you in certain places, although it does depend on the county. So you're gonna have to check, and then so it just depends on where you go. But yeah. So I know that's an issue that a lot of people have been having, but it's like you still have to deal with it, unfortunately. Like, the other thing is you could just move to another state where they don't have to deal with that, you know. But yeah, it's gonna depend a lot. Anybody familiar with subrogation? Subrogation is something that I've seen quite effective, especially as it relates to insurance policies and court bonds. Okay. Well, having worked in insurance before I got into all this and understood what it was, I never sold policies. I had serviced them. Just, you know, simple adding people and taking people off and simple things like that. But I had found out that, you know, basically when the insurer pays out, let's say so you have A and B. A, you know, gets into an accident and it's A's fault and hits B. Well, okay, so B's insurer, you know, let's just say both of them had an insurance policy and they both were insured properly and covered. Now, B's insurer will pay out B, but B's insurer will go and subrogate the charges and the debts to A and A's insurer. So initially it'll go to A's insurer for however much coverage he has, and then after that they'll be subrogated to A. It's the A themselves. Yeah, no, I know it does get wild. Yeah, well, you have to understand like what it is, what's actually happening, because everything is prepaid. So the mortgage itself is being conveyed, or the property itself is being conveyed outright. But what's happening after that is that they're tying the escrow on the note to the property, using the property as collateral. Source, please explain where to learn about this. Subrogation, I have some resources in the drive. I'm not as well versed in subrogation. I know how it works just because from just practice, like just seeing it happen and all that. There's a lot of that. I'm trying to think. I think corpus juris secundum has some on subrogation. There might be some in Blackstone's. But I think like things like Investopedia, like Cornell, things like that, those give you kind of a, you know, and Black's Law. And Black's Law will tell you the real breakdown on subrogation. Yeah, you have to, although you got to be mindful of what type of insurances you're getting, because the birth certificate itself is the whole life policy. So yeah, like when you're doing that, you gotta be careful, because like certain things, like they are not to your benefit. Like you're the surety on the contract and you don't benefit at all, and they benefit if you get harmed or something like that. So like I said, be careful what kind of insurance contracts you're making, because they're not all beneficial. And just because they say you need to have them, like there's case laws and certain things that prevent, you know, state that, you know, not everybody has to have certain insurances. So, you know, that is something people got to be aware of. Because anytime you're doing insurance, you're dealing with bondage. You're dealing with bondage, you're dealing with fidelity and guarantee bonds, and then that's suretyship all together there. Because the insurer, the one that's covering the insured via the policy, they are the surety. They are the co-signee or the consignee for the insured named on the policy. So they provide indemnity. Yeah, but that's when, see, okay, so here's another thing too. With suretyship, when the conditions or certain things about the transaction aren't disclosed to the surety, and certain conditions are changed or made unconscionable, like, the surety has a right to know. So if the surety doesn't get notified, the surety is essentially exonerated. No, I don't have a Telegram. I've been busy. I've been working on moving over everything from Google Drive to another drive, and then I'm gonna work on getting something. Like I said, I do have the Patreon, so like people can make comments up there and things like that. But as far as Telegram, I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I'm gonna set it up right now. Like I said, I've been so busy this week, just with consultations alone, and then other stuff going on in the meantime and everything like that. I've been doing my best. I'm catching up. I'm getting used to it, but yeah, I'm working on it. The representative also places liabilities on the public record. Yes. Yeah, that is true. Because you have to think about the authorized representative. It's almost like an attorney in fact. It's like a public side term for the attorney in fact. The attorney in fact is private, and the authorized representative is public, because what are you doing? You're representing the initial thing, there. So there are so many scammers on Telegram, and it comes with a lot of downsides, so I'm not sure if I'm going to use Telegram. Kind of gets hard to manage at times. Now, I will say this. I do know some people that are getting quite a bit of remedies and success, and at some point I might have them, as guests on here, and eventually I'll be taking like live callers and stuff like that. I just gotta, due to the current infrastructure and tech I got right now, so I just gotta deal with what I got right now. So temporarily, in the future I will have certain things that change. Man, I'm grateful for everyone on here. I'm thankful everyone has good questions, and yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be good, honestly, because once I do get, more people, like I said, I got people that taught me. I got people that helped me study and did things like that are getting plenty of success right now. So, when they start, opening up things up in business and other things, and I got other people that do trading and things like that. So I know some people right now, and like I said, I'm just waiting for certain things to, people to start building the business to a point where they go public with it. And yeah, so there's some things coming in the future. Honestly, I don't think Telegram ever had privacy. That's kind of my main concern with it. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of folks out there that are doing wicked stuff. That's why, like I said, I like to just keep my hands clean. Focus on what I gotta do and just settle my accounts and pay the taxes that are applicable. Not every tax, because not all taxes are even apply, but the taxes that do apply, settle them outright and just pay them. And again, I'm speaking on very specific taxes. So yeah, like I said, I do provide like trust services and things like that, helping to set up trusts. I am going over, a big key part in that tomorrow on the Friday class. That's going to be something that I'm going to cover, like as far as claiming certain income tax treaties. Like I said, I can't go over that right now. But yeah, like things like that. And I will have the replays available for all the paid members, whether you're in the class or not. So, even if it fills up, you're still going to be able to watch the replays. You just won't be able to be in the class directly. But I do still have room in the class. So, just let me know. And I will have the Patreon. I have it in a few of my other videos and posts on my channel. So I think my last one had it in there. That sounds good. Yeah, because there's so many things that, especially when you start getting into the private remedies and things like that, and the actual process is like, you have to be really, really careful, because lawyers and a bar attorneys got a big monopoly on legal advice, because they have vices for destruction. So, anytime you're trying to guarantee someone something, is going to work, they like to shoot a lot of that down. So, but mind you, they can't actually represent you. They can only represent the state. So what does it matter at that point? You just got to be aware of what they do and who they are. Any source on this? Where do you get your info? I want research. It's the Torah and the Tanakh. It's the Old Testament. And then once you go off of that, there's the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jasher, and you start realizing that all these places that they keep talking about is right here in America. So Babylon is in Canada, and New York, it's a city in New York right now. If you look up City of Babylon, New York, you'll find it. It's on Google Maps. If you look up NTT, I studied NTT, but I know the principles behind NTT that gave rise to it. Doctrine of merger, assignment of interest, rights, titles, and interest. I know trust to the point. I may not know everything about NTT, but I know a decent amount of trust because of Christian Walter's stuff. So yeah, no, I did study NTT. Yeah, but yeah, like I said, like, the city of London, the original city of London is Augusta, Georgia. The original city of York, England, is New York. Colchester, Connecticut is Colchester, England. What is it? Alexandria, Virginia is Alexandria, Egypt. If London was really over there in the British Isles, why did they not have the original London Bridge? Why is the original London Bridge over here in it's actually in Arizona on Lake Havasu? So it's unfortunate, but once people build their entire lives on an entire paradigm, they're very reluctant to shift their mindset, because they have quite a bit more to lose than most people, especially paralegals. I don't know, you have those people that are willing to do it, but it's a personal choice on the spiritual level at that. David Greenberg's. I want to say I heard about David Greenberg from someone. I think one of my viewers. I think I did. Although, to be honest, I haven't reviewed any of his content or any of his processes, so I can't talk about it. But I've heard of the name, yeah. And conditional acceptance, I know it's worked, but it's got to be done pretty properly. And like I said, you're dealing with a whole lot of liability in that courtroom. So, like I said, I prefer not to even be there. Yeah, and you can't really get to, just like that point where you're just so overwhelmed that you just don't want to do it. Just when you get to that point, take a break, let it all soak in, because it's like watering a tree. It's not going to grow all at once, and if you just keep on flooding and flooding the tree, eventually it's just going to waterlog the roots. So you have to water the tree, let it rest, let it soak up the water, and then as it gets thirsty again, you feed it with more and more, and eventually it bears fruit. You just can't. You have to let things grow and run their course, especially when learning. Here a little and there a little. It doesn't happen overnight a lot of times, but if you put in the work, you'll get the results. Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. I know that conditional acceptances work. Like I said, I just prefer not to be anywhere near that courtroom. Like I said, common law abatements or special appearances. Or, mandatory judicial notices is another. But those are the temples of bail. I don't want anything to do with it. Yeah, I've had to take plenty of breaks. Like, I'll be reading or doing documents or something like that for 10, 12 hours a day, and then my mind is just like I'm just so ready. I sometimes I just have to watch a movie, and I'll just look for those movies that tell everything, and I can just kind of sit there and just watch and take it in and let my mind relax, and then just kind of, and then in the meantime, it'll give me a little bit of space to think about what they're presenting and things like that. So yeah, good music that's not 440 hertz is another thing. Not mainstream music and stuff like that, but especially like underground things and grassroots stuff like that. Hey, I'm grateful. Yeah, but music is always, especially since I really had some of my associates really put me on to some good music. Like, there's some people out there like Day Tripper is somebody out of Atlanta, and he puts excellent music together. Excellent. There's what else? There's a few different things like ocarina music and things like that. Solfeggio frequencies, which are they correspond, the upper 7 frequencies correspond to the seven chakras. The first two, 174 and 285 hertz, they refer to just certain healing frequencies. Same with 432, but yeah, those, they retighten your DNA and expel toxins and things like that. Been reading Gilbert's summaries and binge listening to NTT strategies all the while the harvest and so on. Hey, at least you're studying the right things. Shoot, that's what I was studying, Gilbert's and NTT. I haven't had as much time to dig into it lately. I think I have it on the drive, but they took it down off of YouTube, and I'm like, man. So, but yeah, no, I know that's while in the public, conditional acceptance works. I know it does. Like, because honestly, what Christian Walters was talking about, he was talking about, that acceptance for value and the return for value. It was never A for V, that process. The A for V process was entirely different than the acceptance for value. And it was published sometime later, I don't know, by agents or what or something, but somebody not doing their due diligence, but it was horrible because... Oh, really? Internet Archives. Oh, I'm gonna have to go check that out. But yeah, I mean, the conditional acceptance was set up basically to accept the charges because they're commercial in nature, and by accepting the charges and all that, it's essentially acting as an estoppel and an acknowledgement of debt. And then from then on out, you return the charges for value based on a conditional thing, which basically limited the payment because you require something that they can't prove, and that's the premise behind it. Although application and enforcement and doing it's an entirely different story. David teaches with staying away from the court. That's what drew me to learning because of the honorable way he shares. I found you more recently. That's good though. I mean, at least you're studying for people that know how to do it. like I said, I prefer to stay out of the courts, like, because they're Nisi Prius courts. Nisi Prius courts because the United States is a corporation that's been upheld in Clearfield Trust Company versus United States, Hart versus Burnett. It's stated very expressly in Title 28 United States Code, subsection, oh shoot, what is it? Title 28. 28 USC 3002, 15, A, B, and C. And it states the United States is a federal corporation, and then B is an instrumentality. So, yeah, you have to live honorably. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, all of that was upheld. So, I mean, you're dealing with just contracts at this point, agreements, trust agreements, because they're trying to take delivery of the property. So if you deliver yourself into their hands, they're going to view it like an entrusting, that you trust them to their process and their jurisdiction. U.S. Trust Corp, states or LLCs. Kinda, well, that actually might be true. I mean, I've seen some of the articles for the U.S. Corp and things like that. So, and I mean, it's not far-fetched as far as LLCs go, the way that they incorporated. It's not far-fetched. I know they are instrumentalities. But yeah, and then you have the Organic Act that provided government for the District of Columbia in 1871, which, according to National Archives, formed a municipal corporation known as the, quote, District of Columbia. So there's multiple different things that state in the public, without having to resort to any private sources, that the U.S. is a corporation since 1871. So yeah, there's been a few people that know what they're talking about. I've heard of a few, like Tammy Pepperman knew what she was talking about. You know, David Clarence, I've heard some things about him. There's been a few things. So yeah, David Clarence knew some stuff, although his method wasn't you can't really duplicate that. Tammy Pepperman's method was, but you got to go through a lot, and she didn't address everything, honestly. Gene Keating was amazing. If you study his stuff, you know quite a bit about how things work. Christian Walters was a master at trust. Who else? Who is this good to study under? Who else? I know of a few. There's that Brendan Jones. He knows securities quite well. So that's something that you can use. Tammy, a bit of a gatekeeper. No, she wasn't really a gatekeeper. She was trying to tell people the best she could. But like I said, she got access to a lot more than most people do. And she told people how much it is. If you go back and watch her videos and find out how much she was talking about the estate is worth, yeah, you realize why she was having a hard time talking about certain things in the public. She was dealing with heavy, like, persecution and people, trying to mess with her and things like that. So, Eon, he knows some stuff. He really does. I haven't looked into everything he does, but like I said, I prefer to stay out of statutory venues and some things like that. And when you start alleging Constitution, there's higher law forms than that. Like Hamilton versus Eaton, 1796, basically held that the supreme law of the land is the Treaty of Paris, 1783, which ended the Revolutionary War. So you got to really know your stuff if you're going to do constitutional law, because it's not the highest law form, even in the United States of America. Robert Michael, I don't know. So also this bro Isaiah. He's the real truth. I don't know about Isaiah, bro. I don't know who you're talking about, really. Only for clarity on terms and forms. Yeah, Eon knows certain terms and forms very well. He really does. But like I said, I can't endorse everything that everybody else has done. Like, I haven't done their processes, so I can't speak for certain things. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, yeah, he knows a good deal. Creditor Academy. Oh, okay. I'm trying to think, like, because there's been some people, like I said, David Clarence, his remedies weren't the best, but he understood how the estate worked, and he was able to get out via kind of a loophole. Who else have I heard of? There's people like Paths. I don't like. I'm gonna say it because if you're trying to go out and securitize, I spoke with a private banker just yesterday, and you know, if you're going out and trying to go and cash these different debt securities and things like that, instead of just setting them off and discharging them, you're gonna have a whole hard time. You're gonna be messing up all types of relationships with banks and things to where they'll never do business with you ever again. So it's good to know. Good to know. Like I said, I can't. You know, haven't heard of her, but Mansa Mahatma. And I've heard, you know, there's plenty of Moors out there that have already known this stuff for years and years and years. Like certain people, Jonah Bey has had processes that work, you know, things like that. But you kind of start to notice a pattern of who follows who. You know, Gene Keating studied under Christian Walters, and you know, Tammy Pepper and oh, Boris is good. Boris is real good. I forgot about him. Patrick Devine. Patrick Devine he was amazing at banking. Like I said, you really have to figure out how you're gonna do this, because like I said, it depends on what type of relationships you kind of specialize in. Like I said, I really don't like debtor-creditor, bailor-bailee relationships, which puts me in a position where I do grantor-beneficiary relationships where I'm the grantor-beneficiary and I'm going to imply them as the trustee. So, Baños? Finding him actually still there. I'm not sure what you're trying to imply there. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, certain people saying that you can go in and cash and endorse those securities and all that stuff without properly setting them off. Yeah, nah. I'm not endorsing any type of stuff. I got burned a couple times off of that. And that's why I don't like everything that Patrick Devine teaches. He was heavily involved in bailor-bailee relationships, which I really don't like. I prefer exclusive equity for a reason, because it allows you so much power to control how the relationship is formed, what the intent was. Like, when you're the settlor and the beneficiary at the same time, the settlor determines the law form of the trust. So you can set it to where it's not even under statutory law if you know what you're doing. That's the power of equity. But you got to know how to express that. A trustee can be beneficiary, although not the sole beneficiary. So there has to be some other beneficiary holding part of the beneficial interest. So that's how that has to go down. If it's just sole trustee and sole beneficiary, it ceases to be a trust, and it becomes more of a general grantor-grantee relationship, and that's it. A gift or a donation. Yeah. I don't really like to fight with these people. I want to go in under the highest law form possible, and that is trust law. Because if it wasn't for the Most High, none of us would have been entrusted with the breath of life. And that's just a fact. It's just the truth, really. Because facts are evil deeds. if you look up it in etymology. So, what was an NTT strat, you said? Oh, absolutely. I'm grateful for everyone that's listening. I'm grateful for everybody that takes the time to do their due diligence. For a long time, I was, having to put in the work by myself and didn't know a lot of people doing the due diligence, but I'm grateful to find those people now. Yes, I have, although I'm not in his courses because he paywalls a lot of stuff. I'm gonna say it, I know he's got a right to charge. He just handles his business model differently. I know he does a lot of like conferences and things like that where he teaches a lot of the private stuff there because of the nature of a lot of the stuff, which makes sense, honestly, because there's so much that you really can't talk about in the public. But yeah, as far as what he's put out in the public and certain, like some of his books and things like that, yeah, I have taken a look at it, and they are pretty good. They are really good. He knows exclusive equity. Like if you're able to get into his classes, that's cool, but they are a little bit steep. Where does canon law fit? Canon law is where the judges are bound to. The judges are the Grim Reapers according to Roman canons. When you understand that they're the Grim Reapers and all that, you're dealing with things like Kingdom Hearts and Bleach, where those shows and video games, they explain exactly what's going on. They don't sugarcoat it, they don't do anything. They just put it in a form for children that even children can understand. Because they're considered trade secrets and confidential state secret information. If you breach the public trust, that's when things go not so well. Because, if you know enough about how the system works and you put too much out in the public, you can literally do, like, the whole thing can just stop overnight. That's why. Yeah, it really does, because that stuff is complicated, especially what Amir teaches. It's at a high level. See, you need to, with endorsements, you have to know the rules of signatures. That's why the knowing the parties and the relationships, is important. So you have to be able to know how to endorse it properly. But like I said, if you don't know who you are, you won't know what endorsement to put on it. I'm grateful for every one of y'all. It's great to have the conversation, to bring a lot of like-minded people together. So I'm grateful. No, but you gotta remember there's the doctrine called mutatis mutandis, which means they change what they want when they will, when suits them best. So it's literally a doctrine that they do. Qualifiers, exactly. Qualified endorsements. Make sure that you're not giving an unqualified signature. Peace, yeah. Man, like I said, I'm thankful for every one of y'all. I'm glad to see that other people studied, new trust technology, and it's really just old, conveyancing laws and stuff from old British laws. It's really just Title 26, if you want to be honest. You've never heard of qualifying endorsements? I would look into that. Don't be giving the bank no unqualified signatures. No. It always has to be a qualified endorsement. Rules of signatures, rules of forms. Understanding that when you create a form and you give them the original, you always have to have an equal original yourself. You always create duplicate deeds of certain things. Yeah. Because they won't take a copy. Like Christian Walters, was talking about, they won't take a copy at all. They demand the original, but you have to create two original deeds a lot of times. I don't know what term you're talking about. You're going to have to put it in there. Yeah. Oh, exactly. Thank you. That's what it is. Unqualified endorsement is a blank signature. It's when you don't put any title, any position, any role with it. You're just the thing, the mark. That signature is you. Oh, mutatis mutandis? Is mutatis mutandis. And it means they change, is a doctrine where they change what they want, when they will, when it suits them. And that's what the doctrine that they go under to change public policy. Yeah, and that is something I really don't like. I hate it, really, because it means that they have no morals, they have no values, and all they care about is commerce and what suits them best for the money at the very current moment. But, yeah, that's really what it is. Studied political science and never crosses the term. Well, they're not going to teach you that in school. I mean, if you know who controls the boards of education and all that, you got the Rockefellers and private interests like that, so. Yeah, it will, although I gotta edit it, but yeah, it'll be up there. Oh yeah, no, I mean, they worship their money. They put it on their dollar bill. You have the capstone right there. It goes back to their new world order. Now you're talking about certain things that, like, at a certain point, it's just separation. They created the monopolies of the utilities companies, the electric companies, the water, bills, food. You know, think about it. Like, if you have to go to the grocery store and do all that, you're not self-reliant. If you don't have your own supplies of food and all that to get through the next year, next 2 years and all that, you're not self-reliant at all. You're completely dependent on the state. And that's the thing that most people are unwilling to recognize and admit themselves. "7711, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Hey, don't say alive. Alive means dead. Living is life. Go look up the Born Alive Infants Protection Act, 1 USC 8. Everything that's termed born alive includes induced abortion. Nah, there's a lot of cold and heartless people out there, but there are things that aren't people, that look like people, that literally have no emotions and are incapable of feeling. So that's why they do certain things. That's why, like, even Google has got their software that's called Adreno, and that browser is called Chrome. And I ain't putting those things together. You got to put that together yourself. Yeah, you have to be. That's part of the burden of due diligence. When they say due diligence, you're supposed to do anything that a reasonable person would in finding out certain pieces of information. Mind you, that burden is heavy a lot of times, but it's got to be done. Yeah, honestly, a lot of people won't make it, but the only thing you can really change is your life and yourself. That's it. Focusing on anyone else, you really just get caught up, because until you're completely out of it, focusing on someone else instead of yourself, I mean, to an extent, is going to slow you down. Oh my, 500 a night for a smart meter? Oh, that's extortion. That's crazy. That is wild. I did not know that. Like I said, some people are reserved for eternal damnation, and it's not a joke. It's not to be funny. It's not to be condescending or hateful. It's just the truth. There's some things and people that are reserved for eternal damnation and will have no remembrance. I mean, honestly, when you talk about it, really, I'm more akin to the idea that there's really only like 100 million souls, and the rest of the people are NPCs or non-player characters, like from video games, that are just like computer generated. They have their own script, and anything outside that script they can't say, or they don't get it and they don't process it. And you know, there's a lot of people without souls. You know, they have movies out in the public. They clone Tyrone, things like that. They have legitimately bodies, empty Does, John Does, with no souls. You're right. Most people don't know where to start, but you got to start somewhere. Most people don't even, you know, a lot of people just dismiss it, so. Yeah. You know, and honestly, that's the thing now is like, people are starting to see a lot of the things going on plainly in their face, and it's too obvious to ignore for a lot of people. So you either accept it or you don't, and you know, it just goes on like that. Because if you don't accept it, you can't change what you can't accept. So that's what keeps them in their same position. Yeah, it's been wild, especially these last few years. But the Roman canons are what govern why certain organizations had, you know, power with the CV-19 stuff. And I've gone over that in private, but I'm not really inclined to talk about it right now. Hey, that's amazing, you know. And who created the universe? Who runs the universe? The Most High. So, you know, you ask an honest and sincere question to the Most High, you know, really seeking the truth, a lot of times you'll find it a lot quicker than you think. And the other times you got to make a correction, and then you can find it. So it's only hard when you don't know where to find the sources and the information. That's really it. Because once you understand who the sources and authorities and things like that, and who's got more say-so than the others, it gets a whole lot easier. Because most people aren't aware that the CFR governs most of the interactions, but the United States Code has to only apply to United States entities or U.S. persons. And then the rest of it is just like, it's equity. It's you know, a lot of it's really not hard. It's just knowing what principles apply and where. Like, there's a maxim: application is the life of rule. So if when certain things apply, that's why, some of the better lawyers, when they know how to allege certain, press certain arguments and certain things like that, a lot of times they argue applicability of certain statutes. There's a reason for that, because there's so many statutes. Not every statute applies to every situation. So, a lot of that depends on, again, like what it is you're doing, what type of transaction it is, things like that. So that's why it's so important knowing how to properly form the relationship from the onset, and knowing how to properly express it via paper and actions and conduct. And yeah, that honestly carries a lot of weight when you know how to govern yourself and you know what actions to take. So, and then on top of that, you just do everything in good faith with clean hands. And when you do that, there's always a remedy. There's always a relief somewhere. Any of y'all have questions on something specific? I don't know what y'all got going on as far as, things like that, but now's the time. Best time to plant a tree. 20 years ago and right now. Let me know, yo. Because You know, and when I was studying this, like, at first it seemed like pretty overwhelming, but it's 5:55 on the West Coast, divine timing. Yeah. I know, and it's all debt most of the time, and I can't cover exactly like the discharge because it's all private. At least the way I go about it. I'm working on some other remedies that aren't so public, or excuse me, that aren't so private, but like I said, I got a Christopher Hauser. From what I've been able to tell, he knows how to do proper some things. Like I can't endorse everything that he does, like I said, but he knows his way around certain forms. But like I said, there's a big thing, like with processes, you take on that you know, whoever that is, their thinking. So you either have to align with that thinking, or you have to understand it completely and modify it and create a whole new process. So it depends. Like, yeah. I mean, he's definitely got some key points, and like the postal rule of contracts and things like that. And it just, you know, and like maybe actually signing the paper forms and certain things as beneficiary. That's like a good practice to do, but it just depends. Like, you know. What is the purpose of setting up the foreign trust? The foreign trust is the only way to protect assets, lawfully entitled assets, from national debts and creditors. That's the only way. He ain't in jail, but yeah, he's doing in court. He's also doing. Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I can't endorse everything he does. Who didn't know if that's really Chris Hauser running that YouTube? I don't trust that's on the current page. I really don't know. It's been so long since I've watched his videos. I can't really say. Don't get me wrong, I looked at some of his stuff, but he was off of YouTube for a long time. And then I moved on. Yeah. Because honestly, like, yeah, there's a few people that, especially Gene Keating, Boris, Tammy Pepperman, Christian Walters. Those are some of the leading authorities as far as getting out. No, Gene Keating got out to an extent, although I don't know how far he wanted to be out. Christian Walters was out, completely gone. No capital letter name. Tammy Pepperman, she got out, no capital letter name. Who else? Yeah, like, you know, it just depends on what your goal is and how far you want to wind up the trust. Like I said, my goal, that capital letter name goes bye-bye. So, and I've already got the proof to prove it. Like I said, I just have to do a couple more things. But that's why I mentioned this specific route, because like I said, I cover it from the inception, because I don't like to deal with a whole bunch of branches when I can just take it by the roots. Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, here's the thing. You can either deal with the current way of administering the accounts and just get access to them and jump through all the hoops and hurdles that they got, which some people are able to do. It takes a whole lot of mental thinking and planning and you know, mental mapping and things like that. But then there's the other route where you tackle it from its origination or its inception, and that's breaking the spell entirely. Which, when you do that, that's why certain, you know, people in high places don't like it, because you threaten the very thing that they created. It's not for the faint of heart, really. And I got tired of trying to weed out the different ones and get to a status where, you know, I was just comfortably living in the system and doing all that, when I already know from the, you know, paying attention to the markets and all that stuff, that what's actually going to go down in the pipeline, especially come January. So that's why I'm putting so much out, because like I said, most of the stuff I talk about is public anyway, so it's just not publicly, commonly known. But yeah, it's, let me see, Christian Waltz is making about your part of the debt and giving back on the blank check. Absolutely. And I've actually done part of this. When you get to a certain point, you're able to do certain audits. They'll give you coupons back, but what you do with that coupon will determine so much, because you have to be able to balance the books. And I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, like I said, I don't like having to toy around with little bitty remedies. Like, I want the whole thing. The entire point is, like, they're trying to keep you with the little remedies and all that stuff, so you sit there fighting and you wear yourself out, and then you still have a bigger fight to handle. So I never liked that. I spent a lot of my energy going at it from the main cause. So yeah, like I said, it's not for the faint of heart. I've seen a lot of things in the courts that most people would be like, is this right? And most of it isn't. A lot of the current practices that they do. 1 USC 8, everyone is an infant. Yep. Minnesota 220 says affidavit. Although that's only for Minnesota. You have to be careful with that. Attached to the BC, like I said, that's only for Minnesota. That's a Minnesota specific statute. It gives you the brief idea, because it does fall in line with the SKV acts, which is why I'm going to be doing those acts, and I'm going to be putting that service on my website. But because, like, when I did that, it was like 135 pages that I had to record because of all the evidence. And then I had to make sure that it was done a specific way, which I can't talk about in the public. I can go over Friday classes and stuff, but yeah. And then I included all the evidence for the proven, 2028 USC 3002 and stuff like that. Is your aim to be completely out of sin? Oh, well, heck yeah. Why would you want to sit there halfway in, halfway out, getting straddled on the fence? I don't get that. Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between just controlling your estate and completely getting out. When you completely get out, you can't even run a business after that, because you get all the funds, but you have no capital letter name at all. You have to essentially live in the private and just only get goods and services that you need, and certain things that you need, like not necessarily land patent. See, the thing about a true land patent is that it can only be granted by the one that has it. So a land patent is an absolute conveyance. So I think it's fee simple absolute, but it relates to parcels of land for the most part. And I mean, there might be a process to do that using the COLAB and all that, but I'm not familiar with it. And yeah, like I said, you have to be it can only be granted to an individual, and it has to be through certain heirship and inheritance ties. Like I said, the copper-colored Hebrews and Americans, like 1828 Webster's definition of American states that it's the copper-colored races. So, and then Congress acknowledged that everything was owed to the Iroquois Constitution. So, how do you claim all your benefits? Well, you have to make the claim and then wind up the trust. That's why the trust was created as a presumption of death. So the only way to have the reversion is to prove you're living. Doesn't Constitution Article 4 make all records and the Jews apply in all states? That's what they use for the full faith and credit. The full faith and credit is what they still used to enslave you, because the birth certificate was annexed under eminent domain. Straight ain't. He's not an aboriginal. Just being honest, he's not. The funds, I'm going to be down and out, but must not have gotten far enough to that comprehend being able to access resources, but all the way out. Well, that's why you have to set up certain things before you do. You have to get an LLC. You have to, set up private trusts. You have to claim your estate, get it all set up, the state EIN. You have to do certain things. Like, you can't just go in, like, just as a person, because then they're going to see you as the entity, as the thing. You're wearing the mask instead of holding the mask up. There's a very big difference. Fully verified persons. Here's the thing. If you're still claiming to be a person instead of having a person is a corporation, a partnership, a trust, estate, an LLC, etc. So if you're saying that you're a deceased entity, then you're effectively stating that you're dead. Again, they have you in their jurisdiction because those are all creations of the state. So if you're saying you are a person, you are property. If you're saying you have a person, you're saying you have property. Exactly. Because with the Jim Carrey with that mask, it was glued to his face until he was able to take that off and all that, and he had to let it go because the mask controlled him, not him controlling the mask. That's the same problem that everybody has today. People keep wanting to put on a show and keep the show going. Like, at a point, you just got to stop. It's good that you have a DBA, but that's not the only thing you got to do. You got to do a lot more than that. It's not so much you can't do, but you got to do a good bit more than that. Yeah, you have a person. That's a hard analogy, yeah. I mean, it is. It really is, but the thing is, the shows that I watch and I reference, when you see them, they're so much more, they convey such a deeper and darker sense of the truth than Jim Carrey with the mask. That was like a child's movie compared to like Bleach and Kingdom Hearts and other things, because they really talk about what it is. When you really understand how deep it is and how far it goes, it ceases to forever be a joke. Yeah, I mean, and that's the sad thing, is like most people let their ego, the mask, which is a demon, it's controlled via the capital letter name, and that's how their vessel, their body, is possessed by demons and controlled via the mask. That's why they feel like they're trapped inside their own bodies and stuck in a system that they hate, because they're too afraid to be honest with themselves and face the truth. Right. Oh, you'll be secure in it, all right? You'll be secured by it and tied to it. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. Bleach was full disclosure. That's why they made it so long. Like, there's others that aren't as long, but they don't go to the same length or detail to convey the absolute truth like they do in that. Because if you know, like, what's going on, and you know a little bit about probate and trust law and all that, that's a whole different show. You see it with whole different eyes. They tell you literally the substitute soul reaper is the power of the executor. Like, the hollows are the hollow entities, the LLCs, the corporations, the entities. The soul society is the court judiciary. The soul reapers are the judges. Just like it says in Roman canons. Like, the soul king, that's the Most High. Like, it's a direct one-to-one relationship with that show. That's why I keep talking about it. Yeah, it's 100% an allegory, and it wasn't exaggerated either. It was quite literal to the very extent. But it was showing what happens in the mental plane, because all of this stuff that we see in the third dimension is an illusion most of the time because of the spells that they cast. So yeah, when you start talking about that mental plane, you see the knives and the swords and the lies and all that stuff, and you take its form and in different shapes, yeah, it becomes way different. You start to see that, and you see the analogies and how they relate and what they are in the mind, and yeah, you see past the veil at that point. And honestly, that was one of the first shows that I grew up watching as an anime. So I do have a little, I do like it a little bit. The guy's carrying around a big sword. And he was always protecting, his family and his friends and all that. So it struck home for me. You have to. If you don't, it'll keep growing back. I promise you. I've dealt with that so many times. It seems so well written, as if there was a grander meaning. Yeah, a lot of times these people are not creative at all. They're just recycling old content from the past. That's really all they do. Like, that's why that show was made like that. Especially that last part, the 1,000-Year Blood War. They talk about YHWH, which is what? That false Christian god, Jehovah. They worship destruction. That's what it means in Hebrew. And then you have the Soul King, the Most High. Higher. I am that I am. I'm gonna have to edit it, make sure it's watchable and all that. Like, I gotta make sure. But yeah, it'll be up there. But yeah, there's so many things out there in the public. You just know how to see it. It's there. It's not common. It's often looked down on, but it's there. Oh, you're talking about the main character in Bleach? Yeah, he was representing a Nephilim, but the position or role that he took on, that's what that's what the viewer is supposed to do. Oh, you're talking about, never mind, you're talking about the YHWH. Yeah, that's the Christian god that everybody keeps worshiping. That was inserted with when they put in the New Testament. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, I'm just telling the truth. Movies that you recommend? What is OPM? And movies, Truman Show, Mr. Nobody, the old one, not the Hitman one. Oh, that's wild. What other movies? I just had a bunch of them. Soul, that Pixar Disney movie. Big Short. The Laundromat. What else? I know there's a few of them I've seen. Every time somebody asks me, it's like I got so many movies I could think of. One Punch Man. Oh man, One Punch Man is interesting. I wasn't. It's cool. I didn't really take to it as much, but it's cool. John Wick, Jupiter Ascending. Yeah, you're right. Excommunicado from John Wick, and then the tax number from Jupiter Ascending. Yeah, you're right. What else? There's a couple of a lot of anime movies talk about it. Spirited Away, Tales from Earthsea. What else? The Children Who Chased Lost Voices. What other movies? I've seen a few of them. The Boy and the Beast, The Boy and the Heron. What other movies? I've seen a bunch of them. I'm trying to think of, everybody knows about the Terminator and Matrix and all that. Yeah. Yeah, One Punch Man, it is corny. It is funny, but like I said, I took to Bleach. It was a little more serious, so after I came from that anime, it was hard to watch One Punch Man for me, really. Miyazaki. Once you turn 65 years old and retired, bond mature, can you claim the trust? I mean, you're still entitled to benefits. I mean, if you can, Pirates of the Caribbean, absolutely. Yeah, you can still claim it. I mean, the thing is like you can claim it at any age because of the fraud that they did. You just have to know how to administer trust. I mean, all the 65 age thing just allows you to do is just claim the SSI benefits from, from the basically the terms and conditions that they have with the public trust. I mean, yeah, if you're able to claim it, then I apologize. If you're able to claim it, then yeah, But as far as like winding up the trust and doing all that, the only way you're gonna get out is claiming the whole thing. Getting rid of the presumption of death and proving life. That's the only way to claim the entire thing. That's why Christian Wall just kept calling it the whole ball of wax. He's like, yeah, when you're going after the whole ball of wax. So, the Wizard of Oz, yeah. The Wizard of Ounces. The Yellow Brick Road. The Tin Man tax identification number. The lion, the one with the missing a heart. And, yeah. And the straw man missing a brain. What else? There's a bunch of them. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm sure some of them will come back to me, but yeah, it gets wild out there, especially when you start seeing them in movies, and then it just shows you a whole nother world that technically exists but may not be corporeal. Just like names, they're not necessarily the corporeal, but they do exist. Silver slippers. Yeah. Wait, silver? I thought they were red. What are you talking about? What? Might be a Mandela effect. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I remember them being ruby red slippers. A blue dress with ruby red slippers. Reverse mortgage. How would I be able to offset it somehow? To be honest, I've heard so I haven't heard that much about reverse mortgages, but I've heard they're very inequitable. To be honest, I'd have to look into that, because that's one area that I just haven't touched. Oh, in the book. Yeah, I didn't read the book. Apologize. Yeah. Yeah, reverse mortgages. Honestly, the way they drain equity out of mortgage, like the house with a reverse mortgage, is not good. I'd have to look at how they structured the arrangement of the transaction. But if you understand the concept, how the note is what they're holding in escrow via the trust. The escrow creates the trust with the promissory note. That's the acknowledgement of debt, and that that promissory note holds via either repurchase agreement or whatever. The house as collateral. If you separate the collateral from the note and the escrow on the note to where it doesn't attach to the house, there's ways to defeat it. But reverse mortgages, I couldn't even say. I really don't. I haven't looked into them enough to be able to tell you. Yeah, to be honest, I don't mess with the bar mitzvah or anything like that. That's Jewish, not of the Jews, the Hebrews. Like, yeah. Because, like I said, the Ashkenazi Jews and other people like that, they're of the lineage of Ashkenaz. I know a good question. Will having a home equity line of credit damage your equity? Depends on how it was done. It depends on if it, like I said, it might just be another mortgage. Because if the HELOC is just like, kind of like in essence another mortgage, where they've got the credit backed by the repurchase, either the repayment agreement or the installment agreement, whatever, and then the promise, agreeing to pay the promissory note again. I don't know. It might be similar to a mortgage itself like that, but there's probably other terms and conditions. Technically it supposedly damages your equity, but that's really, in essence, more so of like when you look at the total value of the entire house just at a market level. That's something like that. what do you think about an NDA and people have to sign? I don't like NDAs. There's a time and a place, but not when using it to silence people from finding out what they should already, especially when there's so many people lying. It's different, like if it's somebody sensitive and personal information where you have like an NDA for like certain HR positions or certain administrative positions where they have to deal with people's names and all the time, where it's literally just data entry, or like for a business or something like that. It's an entirely other thing when you're doing something inequitable and they're using it to silence people. Like the CIA in that one case, that guy that tried to publish a book. Christian Walter's talking about it. But, you know, the CIA effectively had an NDA on the guy, and the guy had to take the book out, and he had criminal charges or something like that because of breach of trust, because the NDA forms a trust. So I know plenty of people that are enforcing NDAs just to get to the answers, but if you have to sign an NDA to get the answer and it's not right, you're kind of out of luck. Signed contract with a bit, opened up home equity for velocity banking. Oh, like you wanted more cash flow or something like that. I don't know. It might be considered just an unsecured loan, but if they're using it against the house, it's still considered, I think it's just still a mortgage, because when you consider that the line of credit is still going to be backed by some type of application or promissory note, they're still going to make the home the collateral, especially when it's like that. That's why they call it a home equity, like a line of credit. I mean, it's a slightly different product, but I'm pretty sure that if you're signing an application or a promissory note, I mean, it's going to be, I think, the similar thing. Like I said, you're going to have to look at the agreement and see how it functions. I mean, you're going to have to do a little bit more research and due diligence, but if they're tying the house as collateral to the repayment of some type of credit arrangement or something like that, it's going to be similar to a mortgage. Depends on how you got out. Not everybody had to sign an NDA. Go look at Boris. He said the way he got out, there was no NDA. He's still on Rumble. I think his channel's like Boris Law or something like that. He did heavy debtor creditor, and he was a lot under the Trading with the Enemy and the FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act, and things like that. Like everything he did was debtor creditor, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, he formed a trust and he did certain things, but most of the stuff I heard him talk about was securities and debts and debtor creditor arrangements. But like I said, it depends on how you get out. If you get the information from somebody and they make you sign an NDA, you're bound by that NDA. If you do the due diligence yourself and find it via public acts and records and, form your own suit or your own, petition or claim for relief, that's different. I've studied from a lot of people, but I'm not taking an NDA. That's why I'm going to keep, I can only talk what I can talk about, but I'll do my best to cover as much as I possibly can. So, yeah, I know a lot of people have mortgages, and it's an ongoing thing. Like I said, I'm going to be doing some things, especially in relation to lawful money, and that code. So, we'll see how it goes. Got to be able to back up what you say with proof. Otherwise, what's the point of saying it? It just becomes a liability if you can't prove it. Well, what do you think I'm doing right now? I'm not taking an NDA. If I had an NDA, I wouldn't even be on to YouTube. Who is that on Rumble? I think it was like Law of Boris, if I'm not mistaken. Law of Boris, I think, is his channel on Rumble. So my nephew just turned 18. Should have him go to do with what first as far as getting in the private side. You got to do everything. Him being 18, he has a little bit easier time until he's 20, because of one of the SSKV acts basically stated that he is lawfully entitled to go and claim it until he's 20. Although everybody's able to, because that statute was a fraud. Equity will not allow a statute to be used as a cloak for fraud. But that being said, him being within that timeline, he has a little bit more leeway and they look at him differently. I'll just put it that way. Because when I started out at like 19 doing this, you know, barely turned 20, they were still looking at me like, okay, he's attempting to do what he's got to do. So he just has to know what he's standing on. Because like when I was that age, I had no street smarts. And I'm grateful for my associates that helped me, you know, so much. But yeah, I mean, honestly, he's got to do the same things. Name change, all caps, upper and lower. Rebutting the presumption of death on the Roman canons. He's got to do the foreign trusts. He's got to claim the estate, do the estate paperwork, and then eventually rebut the presumption of death in the suit. Well, you can still claim it at any age. I mean, it's all fraud. That's what allows you to be able to claim it, because equity won't allow it to continue especially once you don't sleep on your rights. But, you know, according to the SESTA-KV Acts in the I think it's 1488, they made an amendment to say that you could claim it up to like 20 years of age, and then after that point, you know, you couldn't do anything. But like I said, that's complete fraud. And because if you're walking around living in a living body and they're presuming you're dead, that's a fraud. Like I said, that's how Pharaoh ruled the dead. Pharaoh could only rule over the dead because people were presumed dead. And that's why there were certain things about delivery in the hospital in Exodus. That's why when the midwives protected the babies, it was different, because the state couldn't claim delivery of the child. Yeah, those great questions. Like, so, yeah, honestly, people just they just got to do their due diligence, really. You know, it takes a lot of studying, because, like I said, when I was 18, 19, 20, I really didn't know that much about how the world worked, you know. So, I was homeschooled, so I had a whole lot of schooling in certain areas, but was cooped up because I didn't agree with my parents. But mine was a little bit different than most people. So you just got to make sure that he really does know his stuff. That's it. And make sure you know what to tell him, and make sure you know how to go about it. And it's all in trust and equity, like trust law, estate law, administrative law, administrative process, things like that. So you got to make sure that you know those things, because like the executor is the highest office, but if you don't know how it relates to the trustee, like the trust res is taken from the estate res or the estate property. So when you do that, you know, you're going to have to make sure that you understand that relationship quite well and know how to enforce it. So, does anybody have any other questions? Yeah, I'm grateful for everybody that's, you know, like I said, studying and doing their due diligence. Like, I'm 40, but study it like this stuff is like some of the SATs. Yeah, I had a decent amount of studying, so when I started doing this stuff, I went all in. Absolutely. I'm grateful to be able to help. I hope it, you know, gave you a little bit of insight as far as how this stuff works. Still more to do, but you know, I think the most difficult part about it is really just weeding out who's telling the truth and who's not. And the only way to really tell is to be able to go back and fact check everything people say. You know, you can fact check everything I say, and you know, if it's wrong, I'll correct it. But you know, like I said, I don't say stuff for no reason. So you have to be able to know how to handle things, and it gets way easier, because honestly, when you start doing stuff, and how easy or hard is it to get remedy from Virginia? Well, Virginia, I believe, is one of the 13 colonies, so I don't think it's that hard. You have more power than you do over in the West Coast. So it just, like I said, it's just gonna depend on, name change and like presumption of death suits, and then you got other things to do in the meantime between those, to prove that. You gotta, like, it's good to authenticate the birth certificate. It really is. Although at this point, I'm working on finding, proving it without it. I have mine, but like I said, it's a foundling report. All it is proof of death. So it's got to be destroyed, and you need a new identity document after that. Yeah, absolutely. When companies buy out other ones, are they now responsible for the old debts? It depends on how they bought them. Most of the time, yes. I think there's certain ways that they can limit the liability of certain debts when they do this. Yeah, I think it just depends. I think there's certain types of mergers and corporate takeovers that they can do where I don't think they're liable for all the debts. Would you recommend a young offspring who is 11 years old, who's an avid reader and wants to learn? It's a good question. I don't know. A lot of this relates to, I don't know, it depends on whether you've had a conversation with the birds and the bees, because when you talk about commercial intercourse and all that, I mean, it gets, yeah. If they're above that talk and all that, I mean, yeah, you could pretty much talk about just about anything in the law. But, Veterans Affairs. That's outside my realm. Because I don't, like I said, I'm not a military veteran. I don't have anything to do with the military. I don't have any family that's a military. I really wouldn't even know what to say on that. I've heard that the DD-214 is like, it's a discharge, like only partially, because you still have to get certain things and do all that, but yeah, that's kind of outside my realm. Yeah. Like I said, I'm grateful for everybody on here, and it's not, like, especially once you start getting the remedies, and once you get the name change, it's like a spell gets broken. I'm telling you, because it was like there was like scales that fell off my eyes almost, like, in a way, because even from then on, I just knew it was real, like, and could prove it. And so a lot of those different things that people were telling me and normal societal expectations kind of fell away. In other cases, how does one retrieve the unearned interest? Okay, well, you're talking about the case bonds and other things like that. Yeah, Rob Ryder's, for veterans, Rob Ryder, I think he knows what he's talking about. Although, like I said, I'm not a veteran myself. But the unearned interest, you're talking about the bonds and the interest off the bonds. That's dealing with, like, audits, IRS audits, and, like, redeeming things for lawful money, which I'm getting into, although I can't really say too much on because I haven't done it myself yet, although I'm in the process of doing certain things. I'll be able to talk more about it in the future, though. You like your name, that sucks. Well, I mean, there's ways to do about it. You can get rid of the middle name. Get your DD-4, yeah, DD-4 and DD-214. Yeah. And be an example of how to move so it's easier to pick up. Like, what you mean, Mouse? I don't know. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about. So, I'm grateful for all of y'all. Like I said, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for y'all. I just want to make sure that people don't have to go through the same struggles I did. I had to weed out through a lot of processes that didn't work. So, be an example of how to move so it's easier to pick up. Let's see. yeah, like I said, I'm super grateful for all of that. And really, once you get moving and you start, like I'm telling you, you start filing the right documents and you get that, at least an understanding of what you're doing. And, you know, even if you don't understand it fully, you understand why you're doing like a specific step and a part of it, you know, and then you keep studying. It does piece itself together. Because, you know, the spell just kind of like starts to dissipate, and then you can really see things the way they are. Like when you get to that point, you know, you see it. You know, I was talking to someone else, and, you know, he was like, yeah, you know, he sees the angels and demons in the courtrooms. I'm like, yeah, I've seen them too. I've seen them too. They're there if people can understand it. They got vampires in black robes. They got monsters with badges. Yeah. Man, it's been real. Need to get some learning still. Get a hold of some motivated to be living. Yeah, man. I can tell. I'm grateful you studied NTT, so it's going to make a little bit more sense of some of the remedies that I got in the private class and things like that. Like some of the things I directly got from Christian Walters, and I've implemented a lot of it. So, mind you, I don't have all of this stuff, and I haven't done every single thing, but I studied quite intensely his videos, a good portion of his videos that were public for a good year or two, solidly, day in, day out, late nights, no sleeping. I studied Christian Walters a lot. He was one of the few people that knew how to settle the entire account the right way, without commingling. So I just knew that there were simpler ways to do what he was doing and enforce that. You just, yeah, because I think he went through some a route. I'm not sure if he went exactly through the Secretary of State and did mergers and things like that, but he did some stuff. Okay. Let's see. Where's the chat? I don't know if I can see it. Alright, well, like I said, anybody got any last questions? Now's the time. Especially as it relates to equity, you know, relationships, how you form the relationships, trust, estates, etc. I do know there's still a good number of things I can cover. I know that much. Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. Like I said, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for y'all. I'm grateful. I really am. It goes a long way. I'm really grateful to see people willing to learn, because I'm telling you, for years, it was just nobody was willing to listen. Man. Yeah. And it was to their detriment, but alright. This other suit, I'm gonna join Patreon. Yeah, like I said, like I've covered it. I think I covered it a little bit in the last Friday class. Eventually, I'll probably have an entire thing on it. Could you elaborate on clean hands doctrine in RE to past wrongdoing? It depends on. It goes back to like repentance and biblical repentance, because equity stems from like the Torah and the Tanakh, the Old Testament. So clean hands really is just like, equity doesn't mandate that you have clean hands in every single thing, but with a specific matter you have to haven't done anything within that matter, within that case. So that's the difference. So you have to be able to you have to be able to keep your hands clean in that matter. That's really what it is. Like, because none of us are perfect. Like, we've all got our stuff that are all in past that we've got to clean up and then make amends for. I mean, I'm not perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes. Yeah. I've burned a lot of bridges in the past, and I had to learn the hard way doing so. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to like having clean hands in that matter. Like, did you do anything to defraud anyone in that, or were you just doing the best to, do fair dealings in good faith, things like that. So that's really what clean hands is. He who seeks equity must do equity, and he who comes in equity must come in clean hands. That's really what it is. Any other questions? I see you over there, simplifying scripture segment. Right. Yo, I'm glad you're able to check it out and tune in. Yeah, absolutely. Last call. Any other questions, man? Anyone? I want to make sure I get all the questions that people have, especially, like I said, I'll have a general Q&A tomorrow after I have the specific Q&A in the class. After we cover all the topics and the specific questions, and I can go over a few different things, but yeah, I want to see what we can cover right now. Not so far. I'm super grateful for everyone that's decided to join in. There's been some good questions, especially this time. I apologize if some things I just can't go over in the public. You start talking securities, I'm like, all right, I tap out. Nah, that's private. Absolutely, Amanita. Absolutely. I'm grateful you thought you gained something from it. So, like I said, there's plenty of movies that y'all can watch, that talk about this type of stuff, like, financial movies. Big Short, I already mentioned. All the anime movies, and Sea, Money of Soul and Possibility. That one literally talks about it word for word, and Collapse and all that. There's all types of movies that talk about it, really. But absolutely, you're welcome. Like I said, I'm just grateful to be able to share it with other people so they can avoid some of the pitfalls of the public. So, man, it's been awesome. I'll give it about another 5 minutes, let everybody get the last questions in. But after that, I'm probably gonna thank you. All praises to the Most High. All praises and glory to the Holy One. Yeah. None of this is possible without the Most High. I wouldn't even be here if it weren't for the Most High. My life could have ended a long time ago. It's only by the mercies and the graces of the Most High that I was allowed to see this day. Yeah. Like I said, it really does. Like, I really do, value, and I really am grateful for people, like I said, doing their due diligence and, taking the time to research. Because Which Bible? The 1611 KJV, as long as you rip out the New Testament. That's what I recommend. That's exactly what I recommend. Now, there's one by the Bible Museum, not the Museum of Bibles. The Museum of Bibles is in the incorporated one in Washington, D.C. The Bible Museum in Arizona, it used to be the 1611 KJV. I don't know. It was one of those replica ones. The one that makes the giant replica size 1611s, but they have a smaller edition that I used as a family Bible to record like just up to my grandparents' lineage, and then like my real common law name and all that. So that's what I did, and then I did a Bible entry and recorded it in the county and things like that. Do you still have a consumer credit report? Do you know consumer law? I mean, I know about it. I haven't gotten the most remedies with it, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, there's still aspects of it, like antitrust is still tied into that, like 15 USC 1 and 2, and there's plenty of there's some remedies in there, like especially getting stuff off the credit report. Like a lot of this does revolve around credit, although to be honest, like there's a part of it where it's not just what the credit reporting agencies say you have as far as credit worthiness. There's inherent credit worthiness before you got the birth certificate. Absolutely. Thank y'all. I'm grateful for everyone. I really am. But yeah, that's what I would do. Like there's the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act. There's Fair Credit Reporting Act. There's the Truth in Lending Act. There's all these different acts. Like ultimately, they're all statutory law, and it does, like you still need them as far as like getting stuff off the credit report and things like that. But yeah, 10 Commandment under capitalization denoting Satan. I'm telling you, I don't make it up. When I saw that was recent when I found that too. I just knew that the New Testament was fake because of my studies and reading the Old Testament. When I found that, I was like, oh, that's the clincher. That's the Federal Reserve chapter 16. Ooh, I'm going to take a screenshot of that. Dang. Federal Reserve chapter 16. Like, what is that? Their handbook or something? Like, shoot, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Is that like in the USCs or the CFRs? Don't remove things from the credit report, especially if the credit is a right. Well, the only thing is they're creating part 2, huh? Well, the only thing is they're writing slanders and libels and because they're writing inaccurate things and all that stuff on the credit report on purpose to basically hinder or block the credit. So yeah, and I'm aware of 12 USC 412 and 12 USC 411, but like I said, you have to the remedy that I'm looking into is directly involved with that. So I'm really looking into exactly that. I can't really talk about it until I do it, because I'm not going to recommend something I haven't tried and doesn't work until I find out myself. So yeah, that's a good point. If you got something, send me if you got something, honestly, send me an email. It's To Be Fruitful Training Group. It's To Be Fruitful TG @gmail.com. And it's spelled the same way like the channel. It's just, instead of training group, it's just TG @gmail. And yeah, I'll definitely take a look, because like I said, I'm not perfect in every way. I've studied my lane pretty well, but like I said, I haven't delved into every avenue, and this is to get out, you have to study quite a lot, and several different venues to be able to fully understand everything. So like I said, I got plenty to learn. So if you're willing to send it to me, shoot. It's the number 2 BE, Fruitful, regular spelling, TG, Tango, Golf, and then @gmail. So yeah, I'm grateful. Like I said, I'm real grateful. I got a lot of learning to do, especially I spent so much time in trust law that I did neglect debtor creditor and all that. and some aspects of it you need, but not every bit of it. But yeah, there's definitely a lot to learn. Definitely a lot to learn. Cause man, what else is there? Like, there's just so much. Like, when you start seeing it, like, you can't go back. Like, the way I see the world is internally different. Like, you know, you start detoxing your body and getting rid of the parasites. You start cleansing your chakras and getting those aligned so that you have energy from higher realms flow, and you can start, building and doing things that you actually want to do. Like, that's when things really start to get better. Because, I'm at the point where I can see chi and ether and auras and stuff like that normally. So, they're real. Most people can't see them though, but they're real. They really are. Yeah. I'm really grateful for everyone on here. I've taken a break, so this is me saying that sober saying I can see them. All right, that's what I can say. So I do like that though, but I've been taking a break because they've been tainting a lot of the bud in the tree. So there was one time they gave some out into the dispensary, and it was 7-10 different strains of parasites that they tried to market as probiotics. I was like, yeah, nah, I'm not going for that. I'm aware, but I stayed off of. I'm taking a break. I went several years every single day. So, like I said, I'm taking a break, and until I can really get some clean stuff. But yeah, and it is. See, Amanita though, it is a lonely path, but when you walk, like, that's the path of a leader too, because especially when you got to lead by example. Not everybody follows, especially at first. I've learned that quite well. So you have to keep going, believe in yourself even when no one else does, because ultimately you're the one that has to live with the decision if you choose to dismiss what you already know to believe is true. Ooh wee, I like that. Homegrown. Yeah. I'm telling you, I've just been taking a break because I haven't, I've had things to stay focused. I've been pretty busy lately, but don't get me wrong, I will get back into it at some point. At some point, yeah, I definitely will. You're right. Everybody has a path and a role that they got to play, and it's not forever, but there's a time for separation, and excellence does that, because unfortunately a lot of people are mediocre, and that's the simple truth. Like, most people are unwilling to put in the effort it takes to be extraordinary, so thus they are ordinary. So if you want the extraordinary benefits, you have to put in extraordinary time and effort. No, not necessarily, but you do have to put in you have to put in the work. Not necessarily labor and physical labor, but the mental energy and the time to research and study and understand. Hey, I'm aware. I went from my entire family thinking I was crazy to, I eventually just had to trust myself. I'm like, all right, well, I can prove everything I say in law. So at a point, it's like, who's crazier? All right, I'm not doing this from, just everyone else's attention. I'm doing this because I know what's at stake. Yeah. I'm grateful. Like I'm saying, I'm just so grateful. Yeah. And it gets a lot better. Because like I said, when people get to the other side, there's a certain level of authority and position that you're put in place to. There's a lot of responsibility that you're endowed with, and you have a duty to the people at that point. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot when, you know, knowledge is power, and credit is power, and, you know, yeah, it does. It really is. Nah. Man, my family, they really still don't think I know what I'm talking about. I get it. I really do. That's why I prove everything with 2 witnesses. Deuteronomy 19:15. On the basis of 2 to 3 witnesses, on the basis of 2 to 3 witnesses, a matter is established. There we go. And that's codified. If you want to find out where it's codified and acknowledged by Congress, go look up Public Law 97-280, and it'll say that Congress acknowledged the Bible as the Word of God. And then I've already proven that the New Testament's fake. You know, there's that video on the channel. In the comments, I put a lot of stuff in there too. So, Most High, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I do have a lot of the other videos I put out as much as I possibly can. I know some of them are long, but I covered them in the shortest amount of time I possibly could, as while still telling everybody what I had to. So it'll help for understanding too. Have a good one. Have fun hooping. Yeah, I'm grateful. All praises to the Most High. Well, it really has been a real one. Everybody's had some wonderful questions. Yeah, like I said, I have the class tomorrow night. I have the Patreon, I think, in one of my most recent videos. It's going to take me a minute to edit this, because I'm going to have to, edit it and make sure it's all there and all that. And I'm going to have to title it and do, make it all pretty. So, I'm going to get that up. And then, yeah, like I said, I'll have the Friday class tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. And, yeah, that'll be through the Patreon. So, go ahead and reserve a seat if you want. And if you reserve a seat, it'll be for every Friday. So, yeah. So I'll have that there. Like I said, I'll be going over income tax treaties and tax treaty benefits. And, again, not legal advice, not tax advice, but I'm going over and reading their instructions and their words. So yeah, I hope this was helpful for everyone. I'm definitely gonna like I said, I'm grateful for all the positive feedback and everybody that participates. Like I said, I couldn't do it without everybody that joins in and all that. And yeah, so I'm gonna absolutely, Tiffany. So yeah, then I'm gonna see y'all in the next one. So this is B with To Be Fruitful Training Group, and I'm calling in the night. Y'all have a good one.